So today we're going to talk about the classes of pronouns, and there are 6. First we have the personal pronoun, which refers to a specific individual, such as the example you see here on the screen. She loves studying English. Of course we know everyone loves studying English, but we're going to talk about specific individuals for right now, and that's the personal pronoun. The indefinite pronoun does not refer to a specific individual. For example, someone must go to the store for groceries. We don't care who it is, someone. So we don't know. Not referring to a specific individual. Demonstrative pronouns point out people or things, like this house, that car, those people. Okay? They demonstrate. If you think about the root word in demonstrative, think demonstrate, and you will get the idea of what a demonstrative pronoun does. Relative pronouns connect groups of words to nouns or other pronouns, like this one. My favorite meal is one that ends with chocolate cake. Okay, and we connected the first part of that sentence, my favorite meal, is one that ends with chocolate cake. Okay, and we get that connection, all right, with the relative pronoun. Intensive and reflexive pronouns add a lot of meaning and depth to a sentence. Intensive pronouns will strengthen or intensify the subject of the verb. For example, John Travolta himself showed up at the wedding. Now I could change this sentence and just say John Travolta showed up at the wedding, but I want to really intensify my meaning that, you know, John Travolta was there, so I use himself. Reflexive pronouns direct the action of a verb towards the subject. In this case, we're saying my dog bathes herself daily in my swimming pool. We're saying that the dog is bathing the dog, basically. We don't want to say my dog bathes the baby. We're directing the action back towards the subject, my dog. Interrogative pronouns basically introduce questions such as what is for dinner and who is your new English teacher. Okay, so those are the 6 classes. Now let's talk about the personal pronoun. Personal pronouns refer to specific individuals, as we've already discussed. They are the most frequently used pronouns. They can be singular or plural, such as I or we. They can be classified by gender, he, male, she, female, it, no gender. They can be classified by case, which basically means the function in the sentence. They can be subjective, possessive, or objective. And we're going to delve further into these cases. When a pronoun is needed for one of the following reasons, you have to use the subjective case pronouns. This is a list of the subjective case pronouns. I, you, she, he, it, we, they, who, or whoever. So if you are using a personal pronoun as the subject of a verb, you need to use a subjective case. And here's an example. In Mrs. Dennis's class, she and the students worked together to understand the homework. The subject of that sentence is she and the students. Because it's the subject and I'm using a personal pronoun, I have to choose she to talk about Mrs. Dennis. The next one, we spend time going through the book every week. The verb is spend. Because this is the personal pronoun is being used as the subject, we have to choose a subjective case pronoun. So we choose we. Now we're going to talk about predicate pronouns. A predicate pronoun is a pronoun that comes after some form of the verb to be. Okay, like this one. I thought it was she who made an A on the exam. Notice the underlined verb, was. That is a form of the verb to be. And the word after that is a pronoun, and we need to use, again, the subjective case. Another reason that you might use a subjective case pronoun is if you're using it as an appositive. Now, an appositive is a word or a group of words which identifies or renames the noun which precedes it, such as this sentence. Only 2 students, Josh and I, failed the final examination. Now, I could lift out that whole Josh and I segment, and it would not matter to the sentence. It could read just like this. Only 2 students failed the final examination. However, I want to give more information in my sentence, so I add the extra information, Josh and I, which is now in a positive for the real subject, which is the students. Because I'm using in a positive, I want to use a subjective case pronoun. And I choose the subjective case pronoun I. Imagine this sentence if I took those out. That's coming up. That's objective. Let's get to that. Okay. When a pronoun is needed for one of these following reasons, you must use one of the objective case pronouns. For example, and these are the list of the objective case pronouns. Me, you, him, her, it, us, them, whom, or whomever. So when the object of a preposition is a pronoun, it must be one of the object pronouns. Okay, notice object of a preposition, objective case. Remember the prepositions. There are so many prepositions. So this is an easy way to find out if you need the objective case, by finding the preposition. If there's a pronoun after it, it has to be objective case. Here are some examples. I took the dog to her, not she. Susan walked away from me, not I, when she heard I was sick. Jamal gave one of the new puppies to Clark and me, not I. Okay. That last sentence sounds a little strange. Jamal gave one of the new puppies to Clark and me. Many people would say to Clark and I, but notice that little word to. That is a preposition, and we know we have to use an objective case pronoun when it's the object of a preposition. But let's try it with the one that everyone wants to use, I. It sounds okay. Jamal gave one of the new puppies to Clark and I. But let's take Clark out of the picture. Do you want to say Jamal gave one of the new puppies to I? Or do you want to say Jamal gave one of the new puppies to me? You can really hear the difference with me. You can really hear that objective case pronoun is needed. Okay, let's go into a more difficult area of personal pronouns. And let's talk about, especially the objective case, let's talk about direct and indirect objects. A direct object is a word that receives the action of the verb. It can follow only an action verb. It never follows a linking verb. So if a pronoun is used as a direct object, it has to be an objective case pronoun. Let's take a look at the examples. We had this sentence, Susan drove me to the airport. So the first thing you want to do is look for the verb. What is the verb? Drove. Who drove? Susan. Who was being driven? Me. Me is what is receiving the direct action of the verb. So we have to use an objective case pronoun. Let's take a look at the next one. The dogs take her for a walk daily. So what's the verb? Take. Who is doing the taking? The dogs. Who is getting taken? Her. Her is receiving the direct action of the verb. So her is a direct object, which means it needs an objective case pronoun. Now we come to the indirect objects. An indirect object is the person or thing to whom or for whom something is done. Their indirect object may be thought of as the recipient of the direct object, and it almost always comes between an action verb and the direct object. Of course, when a pronoun is used as an indirect object, the object form of the pronoun should be used. And here are some examples. The teacher gave us bonus points for the exam. Let's go back to our formula that we tried on direct objects. What's the verb? Gave. Who did the giving? The teacher. What did the teacher give? Bonus points. Who were the bonus points given to? Us. Us is your indirect object. Because you have an indirect object, you must use an objective form of the pronoun. Let's try this. The car salesman offered her terrific financing. The verb is offered. Who did the offering? The salesman. What did he offer? Terrific financing. Who did he offer it to? Her. Here's a little trick to help you identify whether the pronoun that you need is an indirect object. Add the little preposition to at the end of your sentence and remove your pronoun, like this. Let's take in the first sentence the pronoun us out of the sentence and put it at the end. The teacher gave bonus points for the exam to us. Now we know that we needed that objective pronoun because we go back to the idea of the object prepositions. The car salesman offered terrific financing to her. You know it's an indirect object, so you know you need that objective case pronoun. So let's talk about the other case of personal pronouns, the possessive case. Possessive pronouns are used to show ownership or possession of something. Most pronouns have two possessive forms: my and mine, our and ours, her and hers, their and theirs, your and yours, his and its. Notice something. There is no mines. Mines are made of diamond and coal, and they are in the middle of the earth. They are not possessive pronouns. Okay? All right. So, you want to use these pronouns if the pronoun does not come in front of the noun it possesses. Use mine, yours, his, hers, its, ours, or theirs. Like this. The puppy was mine. The lawnmower was theirs. The ring they found under the sofa was hers. Okay? Then, if the pronoun does come in front of the noun it possesses, you use these possessive pronouns. My, your, his, her, its, our, or their. It was my puppy. It was their lawnmower. It was her ring they found under the sofa. The possessive form is typically used immediately before a gerund. Okay, a gerund is a noun that ends in ing. Here are two examples. My mother appreciates my cleaning the house. Cleaning is a gerund, my is possessive. Her cooking leaves a bad taste in everyone's mouth. The possessive forms of it, who, and you, its, whose, and yours, cause problems. Watch for its, it apostrophe s, which actually means it is. Who, who apostrophe s, which actually means who is, and your, you apostrophe re, which means you are. In these cases, the apostrophe indicates a contraction, not possession. So, take a look at these examples. It's important to get your homework turned in on time is really it is important. You're going to the movies later is really you are going to the movies later. And who's going with you is really who is going with you. Here is a trick to not ever having a problem confusing contractions with possessive pronouns. Stop using contractions. It's the easiest way for you to keep from making these types of mistakes. Okay, intensive and reflexive pronouns, here they are. Myself, itself, yourself, yourselves, ourselves, himself, herself, and themselves. These are not intensive or reflexive pronouns. Ourself, his self, their self, their selves, and they self. These are not. So be careful and don't use these. And remember, intensive intensifies the noun or pronoun. The owner himself fired Harold. And reflexive reflects the action that has been done by the subject to himself or herself. She bathed herself even though her arm was broken. Now let's get to some problems with pronoun agreement. And let's talk about agreement in number. This is fairly easy when the subject is a noun or a pronoun. For example, Kathy finished writing her novel and she sent it to her publisher last week. Okay, Kathy is the antecedent for the pronoun her. She is the antecedent for the pronoun her in the second half of that sentence. So that's pretty easy. Nouns or pronouns. The dog performed his tricks, so he was given a chewy treat. Dog is the antecedent for both pronouns, his and he. The class finished all their work, so the teacher dismissed them early. Again, class, a noun, is the antecedent for the pronouns their and them. She loves her new house. She is the antecedent for the pronoun her. Those are simple. However, it gets icky, very icky, when the subject is an indefinite pronoun. There are some indefinite pronouns that are always singular, so you use a singular pronoun to refer to them. For example, each. Each is singular, so we choose the singular pronoun her in this example sentence. Each of the girls bought her own dinner. Well, if you go back just for a few seconds to subject-verb agreement, you'll see that each has to be our subject. So we have to make sure that our verb and our additional pronouns are going to be in agreement in number. What might confuse you is you see of the girls, and you think, girls is plural. But girls cannot be our subject because of the girls isn't a prepositional phrase. So we have to look at each. For indefinite pronouns that are always plural, you use plural pronouns. Both is an example of an always plural indefinite pronoun. In the example sentence, both of the students said they would prefer less homework. We have both, which is plural, so the pronoun that we use to refer back to both must be plural, so we use they. For indefinite pronouns that can be either singular or plural, the pronoun chosen is going to be dependent upon what the indefinite pronoun has as its antecedent. Okay, let's unravel that. Most of the customers demanded their money back. There's our example sentence. The word most is an indefinite pronoun that can be either singular or plural. But since it refers to the plural noun customers, we have to choose the plural pronoun their to refer back. Let's look at this next sentence. Most of the hamburger had horse meat in it. Again, most can be a singular or plural indefinite pronoun, but in this case it refers to the singular noun hamburger, so we choose the singular pronoun it. Another problem with pronoun agreement that you must consider when you write is agreement in person. And we know that pronouns must agree in number and person with their antecedents. We know that person refers to the differences among the person speaking, the person spoken to, and the person or thing being spoken about. Okay, the person speaking is first person. The person spoken to is second person. And the person or thing being spoken about is third person. So here is a list of the pronouns by person. First person, I, me, my, mine, we, us, our, and ours. Second person, you, your, and yours. Third person, he, him, his, she, her, hers, it, its, they, them, and theirs. When you shift person in a sentence or paragraph, you have completely lost what you're writing about and you have confused your reader. Let's take a look at some examples of that. Here are some common mistakes. I'm going to give you some examples. Students need to file their FAFSA, so you won't have problems paying for school. Now notice in that sentence that it switches from the third person noun students to the second person pronoun you. To correct it, you just need to stick with one point of view. Go back to the third person. Students need to file their FAFSA so they won't have problems paying for school. And we notice now students is plural, the pronoun we refer back to that with is plural, so we're okay. Let's take a look at another example. When you buy a used car, consumers should ask for the history of the car. Okay, we started out with the second person you, and we switched to the third person consumers. Now there's two ways you can fix this. Here's the first. When you buy a used car, you should ask for the history of the car. Notice that that entire sentence is written in second person. What about this alternative? When consumers buy a used car, they should ask for the history of the car. Now I have the noun consumers and the plural pronoun they. Stick with one point of view. So here are two big problems with pronoun reference in writing. Vagueness. If your pronoun reference is vague, it means you have no specific antecedent. So now we're going to talk about my favorite movie of all time, which is Pirates of the Caribbean, Curse of the Black Pearl. And I'm going to write a couple of sentences for that. So here's a sentence. Here's an example sentence which shows vagueness. For the theme of freedom to work, it must remain under the control of Captain Barbossa. So take a look at that sentence again and think about, what does the word it refer to? We have no idea, based on the information in the sentence, what it is. What must remain under the control of Captain Barbossa? One of the other problems that you find is ambiguity, which means you have too many antecedents. Here's an example. Once Jack, Will, Elizabeth, and Barbossa enter the cave, it seems almost certain that he will die. We'll take a look at that sentence again. We have Jack, we have Will, we have Elizabeth, and we have Barbosa. Who is he? Well, we know it's not Elizabeth because she's a woman. But we have 3 men in that sentence, and we have no idea who he is because we have too many antecedents. Keep this in mind. Every pronoun in your writing must refer to something specific and something that has been previously named. So let's go back and fix these sentences. Stop the vagueness by avoiding the use of the words that, which, this, and it, unless you have a very clear reference. Let's go back to the sentence. For the theme of freedom to work, it must remain under the control of Captain Barbosa. Well, I have no idea what it is. Why did I use a pronoun there? Just provide your antecedent, and that will fix the vagueness. For the theme of freedom to work, the black pearl must remain under the control of Captain Barbosa. So what about ambiguity? Well, to avoid ambiguity, put the pronoun as close as possible to its antecedent. Revise any sentence in which there are 2 possible antecedents for a pronoun. Once Jack, Will, Elizabeth, and Barbosa enter the cave, it seems almost certain that he will die. Well, we don't know who he is. So let's see if we can fix this sentence and make it make more sense. Once Jack, Will, Elizabeth, and Barbosa enter the cave, it seems almost certain that Barbosa will die. Now I know. We could also revise it again. Because Barbosa is the villain, once the fight begins in the cave, it seems almost certain that he will die. Now I've eliminated all other possible antecedents, and so my pronoun works because I know that he has to be Barbosa. He's the only man mentioned in the sentence.